Blue, we're going to have to deal with this. And then I didn't get to it yesterday. I put it so far down the stack I didn't get. No, it's this story about how Obama's not really spending all that much money. Obama's probably the most fiscally responsible president we've had in 25 or 30 administrations. I mean, that's the story. Some guy named Nutting, Nutting, at MarketWatch, which I thought MarketWatch used to be CBS. Oh, now it's Wall Street Journal. This guy Nutting goes back and forth. He's got this big story out there that Obama, it's a myth that Obama's a big spender. And the way he does it, by the way, hi folks, El Rushbo here at 800-282-2882. The way he does it is to say that all the spending in 2009, which would include the stimulus, was Bush's. Because the budget for 2009 was Bush's, done in September of 2008. So Obama's first year is actually Bush's last budget. But Bush didn't budget the porculus. Bush didn't budget the second porculus. There's $1 trillion of spending that this guy Nutting lops onto Bush and doesn't give to Obama. But that doesn't even cover what's going on here. And I sent it all around to everybody. I said, you better look out for this. And what's happened now, Obama has taken the bait on this. Here, Obama's running around like everybody else, knowing full well that he's the spending king. Everybody knows it. This was a really lame attempt. But when I sent this story around to my buddies and my friends and everybody, I said, look, this is going to get picked up today by the drive-bys, and it's going to be the narrative from now to who knows when. All it takes is just this one story, this one assertion, this one opinion piece from this guy. And lo and behold, by the middle of the afternoon, yes, after the program was over, you had the spokeskid Jay Carney citing the piece and Obama citing the piece. And I think, it's kind of hilarious. It's almost like Obama has taken the bait now. Not that this guy intended to bait Obama. I think the story ends up being a bait because it isn't true. But here's Obama, 3.5 years, knowing full well how much he's spending because he intends to. It's part of his plan. His spending is directly tied and correlated to the shrinkage of the private sector, which he also intends. This statistic doesn't lie. Obama has added more to the national debt in 3.5 years than all the previous presidents combined. His deficits are more than all the previous presidents combined. How do you do that if you're not a record-setting spender? So Obama and Carney, everybody in the regime, they know full well that they're the spending kings. And all of a sudden this story comes out, and they point to it like first graders who've just been exonerated for not breaking the window. See, he did it. He did it. I didn't do it. He did it. And so now they're out there defending this thing, and it can be easily refuted, honestly and truthfully, which the drive-bys are not going to do. The drive-bys are going to pick it up and run with it. And in so doing, see, this, I think, is the unintended positive consequence for us, the good guys. In picking this thing up and running with it, they are admitting that big spending is a huge problem. In pointing to this piece of, hey, it isn't me, they are admitting, they're accepting the premise, if you will. The Tea Party premise, our premise, that Obama's spending is reckless, that's dangerous, that it is destroying the future of your kids and grandkids. That's why the Tea Party exists. People know that this is happening. They know they've never seen spending like this. They know they've never seen indebtedness racked up this fast. They know it instinctively. That's why the Tea Party came. That's why it came into existence. So now our premise that Obama's a huge spender has been accepted, and they are now trying to defend it. So there is a huge opportunity. You know me, I always try to find the positive in everything. There's plenty in this to be ticked off about, because the story, as I say, if you take a look at budgets and spending and then attach all the spending in 2009 to George W. Bush, by the way, not all the TARP money was spent. The TARP money was allocated by Bush, but a lot of the TARP money was discretionary And Obama, I think, what's the number? 300 billion of the 700 billion was authorized by Obama, not Bush. So if just off the top of my head here, you've got 700, whatever it was, 780 billion for the porculus. You have 140 billion for porculus 2. So 780, 140, we're at 920. Then you have the 2 to 300 billion. We're over $1 trillion of spending that this guy nutting chalks up to George W. Bush and not Obama. And then something that very few, I haven't read everything about this, but there's another aspect to all this. And that is what happens to the baseline when you add $1 trillion to the federal budget. So Bush authorizes in Congress, they authorize the budget. Fiscal year starts October 1st. So the budget for 2009 starts actually October 1st of 2008. Actually, before the election, the new budget kicks in. And the baseline at that time is based on the 2009 fiscal year budget starting in 2008. Well, then Obama comes along and essentially adds $1 trillion, folks, above and beyond what Bush already budgeted. Bush and the Congress. I know Congress does the official final budget, but I just, for the purposes of this guy's trying to blame Bush for all this, I'll use Bush as in my terminology. You add over $1 trillion in new spending that's not in the budget. The porculus 2 of 140 billion. What happens to the baseline? The baseline is increased, and by that, the every budget thereafter, and we haven't really had one because of all the continuing resolutions. Democrats have not proposed a budget in the Senate or the House for 3 years. Obama's budgets have all gone down to embarrassing defeat. I think every Obama budget's gone down with not one vote in favor. But nevertheless, the baseline, had there been a budget, and baseline does come into play with a continuing resolution, the baseline is increased by $1 trillion. And so the increase in budgeted spending is automatically ratcheted up by $1 trillion anyway, and then the increase in spending becomes geometric in its proportions or progressions because of that random $1 trillion of Obama spending added to the budget. Bammo, the budget baseline skyrockets, and so every budget item gets a proportionate increase larger than it already had in the Bush budget that went into effect in October of 2009. Then USA Today has a story today. Drudge just made it his lead. Real federal deficit dwarfs official tally. The typical American household would have paid nearly all of its income in taxes last year to balance the budget if the government used standard accounting rules to compute the deficit, according to a USA Today analysis. Under those accounting practices, the government ran red ink last year equal to $42,000 per household. That's nearly 4 times the official number reported under the unique rules set by Congress. U.S. households' median income is $49,000. The big difference between the official deficit and standard accounting is that Congress exempts itself from including the cost of promised retirement benefits, meaning they don't have to count Social Security. No, didn't you know that Social Security's always been off budget? And they've been able to take money. That's why they've been able to take money from Social Security and lop it onto the budget to reduce the deficit. That's what this story is all about. The real deficit, if you count Social Security that we don't have, is $5 trillion. And this story comes out the very day after this nutting guy writes his story that Obama's spending is not large at all. In fact, this nutting guy says that Obama's the most responsible president spending-wise that we've had since Eisenhower. Oh, that's the premise of the story. The number one, the biggest spender in the modern era is Reagan. No, I kid you not. That's what the story, that's what I was sending around yesterday, and I did, like a fool, I didn't get to it on my own program. The federal government calculates the deficit in a way that makes the number smaller than if standard accounting rules were followed, and we're talking smaller in trillions. But the interesting point of this story is if you confiscate all income of the typical American household, you would balance the budget for 1 year. Now, I put this in perspective. Median family income is $49,000. Under the proper accounting practices, well, forget the accounting practices. The real deficit of $5 trillion, if every household would just send all of its income to Washington, not just the rich, every household, based on this median number of 49,000, you send every dollar every household earns to Washington, and you'd balance the budget for 1 year. Just 1 year. You would not reduce the national debt. You would just balance the budget for 1 year if you confiscate everybody's income. And when you do that, it's important to add this. If that were ever to become a policy, which it wouldn't, but if it were ever to become a policy that every dollar you earn goes to Washington, nobody would continue to work. There would be no point. You would end up with nothing. No, it's not impossible to have fiscal sanity. What's required is to get on the right path. The right path is what provides confidence to everybody that proper policies are in effect, that debt is being reduced, and that there's some sense of responsibility that is being invested in, followed. Now, here's the thing about the nutting story. I did due diligence. Not only did I do due diligence, I diligently did due diligence. I diligently did some show prep, and I found out where Nutting got his data. Nancy Pelosi, a year ago, put out a chart. And Nutting is simply parroting a chart that Pelosi put out in May of last year. And what Pelosi did to show that Obama's spending was not nearly what everybody says it is, was to make sure that all of 2009 spending was lopped into the Bush category because of the budget done in 2008. It starts October 1st of 2008 for the year 2009. So while Obama was spending his $1 trillion porculus bills, both of them, 1 and 2, Pelosi puts out a chart that lops that spending into Bush's budget. And when you do that, then you're able to claim that Obama didn't spend anything in 2009. It was all Bush's. The game you're playing is that everything spent in 2009 is actually the 2008 budget, Bush's last one. Well, Bush didn't authorize the porculus bill. He didn't authorize all of the TARP spending. So Nutting, Rex Nutting is his name, and Pelosi are doing the same trick. They're cutting off the first year of Obama's spending. They're not allocating any of the spending in 2009 to Obama. It's all being added in the Bush column. Now, Pelosi, who knows? She didn't do the chart. Some staffer did the chart. They're all little activists in there on the left side. And, you know, Pelosi might have done it accidentally. Who knew? I don't believe it's accidental. It's good. It's possible. Now, Porculus 2, the $140 billion, that happened after October 2009, but so that would technically be thrown in if there had been a budget. That'd be thrown in the budget for 2010. It's still Obama's. And that $140 billion stimulus 2 is added to Bush by Pelosi, which Nutting then picked